Welcome to the Predictive Playbook for Monday, July 19th, 2021. I have a special guest on the show today. He's making his second appearance, and this is going to be a regular slot on Mondays for Mad George. And he's calling us. He's talking to us all the way from Greece, where he lives. How's it going today, George?
Hi, how's everybody? Thanks for having me on the show again. Got a couple things lined up. Can't wait to get started.
Yeah, awesome to have you on again. Hopefully we'll get you scheduled for Manny's Pub, which airs at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And it's basically a culmination of everybody's day, as if you're stopping by a real pub to meet your buddies and talk sports betting, key information that is shared among everybody. And it's just it's turning into a really good time. So we'll have you'll fit in perfectly on that show, Mad George. You definitely will. So in baseball,
looking forward to that one.
I am too. And in baseball here we have a pretty interesting situation now. I will just kind of highlight this, and I know we want to talk about the Angels game today with Ohtani on the mound. But before we get there, the Mets now with Jacob deGrom put on the injured list is major news for the National League East and major news for the Philadelphia Phillies, who are on a 2-game win streak. They played the Marlins right out of the chute after the All-Star break, and now they're only 2 games behind the Mets for first place in the National League East, and I think that's going to be a real competitive race between possibly 4 teams, the other 2 being the Braves and the Nationals. And then, the Red Sox kind of faltered here a little bit, losing 2 in a row to the Yankees. They still maintain a half-game lead over Tampa Bay, 6 over Toronto, and 7 over the Yankees. But the Yankees had to do that if they have any hope of making the playoffs, as you and I discussed last week. So let's move down to this Angels game, because this line is moving, and you've been in touch with the pulse of this game right from the start. This game opened at -120 and a little bit higher than this at a couple other places. But on the wagertalk.com/odds webpage, it opened at 120 and plus 100 on the other side for Oakland. And now it's come down to as low as, I'm seeing a -105 now with Oakland favored. So now we've gone across the zero line. So to be clear, the Angels opened as -120 favorites. They are now a plus 120 underdog. I'm sorry, plus 101. 101 to 105 underdog with Oakland now favored -110. What do you make of this line movement, George?
So line movement is really, really a big deal for me when it comes to betting baseball. It actually helps me avoid a lot of traps. I would say that most of the time, when you see a line moving the other way, you're in trouble. I looked at the Dodgers yesterday. They went from -190 close to -150. They ended up losing. I mean, it happened in walkout fashion, but I'm glad I stayed away from that one, because I was looking at that as far as a run line play. It actually helped me out. So line movement is no joke when you talk about baseball. I was looking at the numbers. I was actually considering the Angels as one of my free plays for the show. When you look at Oakland over the last 30 days, they rank last in OPS against right-handed. I'm sorry. Let me take a look at this one more time. Yeah, exactly. Last in OPS against right-handed pitching. And as far as batting average, they're also last. So for me, I looked at that play and I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer. I'll take the Angels -120. The line looked fair. I'm looking at this movement now. It's making me second guess myself. So I just wanted our viewers, just a general beware when you see the line moving the other way in baseball. At least in my eyes, 8 times out of 10, it tells you something. It's not like basketball where you see a line move a point here and there. Not that big of a deal. In baseball, line movement is significant. So I would stay away from that. It still might hit, but you know better than me than us professional bettors. We don't just We don't just pick a play and ride with it.
That's
We
true.
have multiple reasons to invest our money into a play. And you know what? If the Angels win, I won't be mad. I won't be. But as of right now, this line movement has scared me, and I'm staying away from that one, John.
I don't blame you because immediately it makes me think that there's word out about Otani, and this is all speculation, of course, but maybe later as the day evolves, news will come out that is explaining this in more detail, I suppose. Sometimes it doesn't. But it does make me right away think Otani, there's something wrong, like spin rates or velocities down or something. But
Sharp money, maybe. I'm sorry. It just doesn't make
be.
sense when you see this team. When you see this team ranked last over the last 30 days, they're dead last. Like, that can't be a fluke. They're dead last against right-handed pitching over the last 30 days in batting average and OPS. There's just no reason to see that sort of line movement. On the other hand, I'm seeing line movement at the Dodgers game too. Looks like Sharps are backing Tony Gonsolin. And I'm not really against that. I don't know where you are as far as that game, John, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Dodgers right now. Let's see here. Why am I not seeing the game? Oh, there we are. Yeah, Gausman. Yeah, that moved a ton. That actually moved a lot already. Let me go to Wager Talk odds page, and we have the Dodgers.
I believe it was like 115 maybe it opened.
It opened at minus 110 and is all the way up to minus 133 at Circa, 135 at William Hill. 135 is the consensus. So that's big. Especially against Gausman, too.
Yeah, do you mind if I offer my free play here for our
sure,
lovely viewers?
Absolutely. Be my guest.
So, all right. So let's get down to it. We're looking at the Dodgers against the Giants today. Kevin Gausman, he's just having an outstanding season. He's pitching out of his mind. His whip is .82. I actually have to rub my eyes when looking at that. I have a lot of respect for him. I just don't see how he can maintain those types of numbers until the end of the season. He's faced the Dodgers twice. He went 6, allowed only 2 hits once late May. And then he went 5 and allowed 3 hits, 3 runs, all earned on the 30th of June. So he faced the Dodgers at the end of at the end of May and then the end of June. He hasn't really gotten roughed up in any of his games. He's been stellar. That's why I told you in the previous show we did together that, you know, when somebody's as consistent as Gausman's been this season, you can't just look at it and say it's a fluke. He's only gotten roughed up once. That was way back in April on the 14th. I have his game log pulled up right here, John. He allowed 4 hits and 5 runs. That's it. He's not allowed more than 3 runs in any other game. Actually, he has that one where he allowed 5, one more where he allowed 3, and all of his other starts have been 2 runs or less. That's superb. I do think today's kind of a challenging spot considering, you know, we had the All-Star break. We have the Dodgers coming up that walk-off loss. I expect them to be locked in, and the line movement is telling me take the Dodgers. And at the end of the day, you know, I don't mind laying the 133. And, you know, with those guys coming to the plate, 2 outs, whether it's 7, 8, or 9 man, whoever it is, I got a good chance in this game. So I'm going to be laying the 133 and taking the Dodgers tonight.
Yeah, I like that, and I'll add some fuel to the fire for you. Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, is 23-4 in home games after his team is batting .315 or better over a 5-game span, and 31-7 over a 5-game span with an on-base percentage of .375 or better. So unlike the Oakland A's, we have the Dodgers team here in California that is really starting to hit on all cylinders, and that's a scary thought if you're the Giants and you know that they're about to overtake you in the standings.
You know, I know it's still a little bit early to be looking at the wild card standings. And let me just say this to everybody watching and betting baseball: beware of these last 10 days before the trade deadline. a lot of kids are unstable right now. They don't know if they're getting traded or not. Teams are going to be trying to display their assets to try to get a good return if a trade happens. So this is really a tricky spot, and I'm taking it easy until the 30th. And I feel like after the trade deadline's over and we're actually, looking at the playoffs and looking at the wild card standings, that's when, motivation becomes more of a deciding factor in baseball. Even though it's not a contact sport, you don't see the passion, the hustle that you might see in, football or basketball. Motivation will be important. When you look at the wild card standings, not that I think it's significant right now, we have the Dodgers and the Padres. Trust me, if I'm the Dodgers, I don't want to play the Padres one game to determine my season. I think that for both teams. I don't think the Padres will like that scenario, or the Dodgers do. So I look for both of these teams start making a run, trying to get that division win. You don't want to play your season in one game. Anything can happen in the wild card game.
That's so true. That is so true. And that's one of the advantages the Phillies have and the Braves and the Nationals in chasing down the Mets, because there's only going to be one team coming out of there, and there will be a divisional winner. And that's it's like having your own little league among the rest of the six divisions. But that's a good pass. I wanted to comment on what you said before. I think the Phillies have really underachieved over the last couple of years. They have the hitting. Maybe they're top heavy, but they have 5 guys that can get it done. I know Rhys Hoskins, his batting average is down compared to the last couple of years, but these guys, and Joe Girardi, he's a well-respected coach. I was expecting major changes in Philly, especially with the Bryce Harper signing. These guys are underperforming. So in my mind, if I'm a Phillies fan, it's now or never. Aaron Nola, this guy, he's just been dependent on that first inning. He had first inning trouble the last couple of years. He doesn't have that ace, the air of an ace when he steps on the mound. And I like this kid. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't trust him right now. Wheeler's having a great season, but the Phillies are underperforming. And if you think that, and I agree with you that Jacob deGrom being out, that's basically a dub every 5 days. That's a guaranteed W every 5 days, or at least a chance to win. And now that he's out, and the Mets are kind of struggling pitching wise, especially. It's now or never for Philly. I mean, the Braves, to say they're underperforming is an understatement, but that's more about the carryover from last season. It's just I expect the Phils to make a run. Will I be betting them throughout those days? I don't know. I'm actually waiting for today's pitchers to come out in that game. I don't know if we have let me check. Do we know who's pitching yet, or is it still off the board? Well, let's see.
ESPN has it off the board right now. The Marlins. No, it's you can't bet that anywhere right now. Only action.
Yeah, Marlins Nationals is nothing, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. It's the Nationals. I'm actually looking. It's not the Phils, but I'm looking to bet that game. I'm trying to see who's going to start for these guys. We'll see. We'll see later on in the day. Maybe a bullpen game for both. Who knows?
Could be. Mets Reds is an interesting matchup too, with the Reds getting clocked by Milwaukee over the weekend. We talked all last week. I don't think there was a show I hosted or was a guest of that we didn't mention the Reds as a possible futures bet to chase down the Brewers. So initially here, that doesn't look like a real good bet, but there's still a long way to go. And I do like this Reds team to make some noise. So you think about it, the National League is probably going to be the league that has the most exciting races straight through to the end. Milwaukee has the biggest lead, however, in the majors, and in the National League, the hottest team the last 10 games, and obviously that leapfrogs over the All-Star game, is the Phillies, 7-3.
The Phillies, correct.
It's correct. Just like it's almost like I misspoke to say that, but it's not the Dodgers, who are 5-5 the last 10, and it's pretty interesting stuff, to say the least.
A game I'm looking at, and I actually wanted your opinion because there's also significant line movement in this game. It's Boston at Toronto. Everybody's expecting the Blue Jays to kind of cool off. They're going back to Toronto. They have not cooled off. Lottie was not affected by going to the All-Star game. I see this opening line at minus 121 now, minus a buck 35. And Pivetta is one of those guys, just like Gaussman. I mean, he's not having as stellar a season, but I don't know who expected Pivetta to be this good. Looks like the books don't trust him that much, considering Toronto is such a significant favorite with the over-under at 10.5. What are your thoughts on that game?
Well, I'll tell you what I like initially is the under. I definitely lean under here, and this could actually end up being a premium pick in the next couple hours after I get the research and the models all run. But I'm seeing what I call irrational exuberance on the over. And that's a term actually I borrowed from a Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan back in 1998 when he was asked what he thought of the valuation of the NASDAQ and the .com companies. So it's kind of stuck with me because sentiment is so key in both financial markets and sports betting. And the sentiment here is overwhelming to the over. And we're already at a pretty lofty level here at 10.5. What I will do after the show, I'll probably put these tweets out, is how Boston does and how teams do after playing the Yankees. It used to be a pretty strong correlation. It was like NFL teams who played the Patriots or had the Patriots next on the schedule were prone to a letdown and lack of focus, knowing they have the big game the following week. So we'll see what that brings out. But initially here, this will be at least a 3-unit bet on the under, and it's already minus 150. It's already minus 115 juice at 10.5.
So it's getting juiced. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I see it. I mean, I'll wait. And this might be one of those games too, George, where I do the in-game betting, and much like I traded, I was an institutional trader on Wall Street. You let the volatility work to your benefit. So let's say this line goes to 11, and I'll put 50% of my bet pre-flop at 11, and then in-game I'm going to look for bigger numbers. And if they get out to a fast start, somebody gets a 3-run homer, who knows how high that total can go. But that way I can leg in 25% in 2 separate bets to equal the size of my regular bet. What you don't want to do
and
is...
actually...
Go ahead.
And actually get a 3 or 4 runs extra. I like this approach. I'm not really an over-under bettor. One of the reasons is because when you're trying to pick a side, you're trying to guess what one pitcher will do or 9 hitters will do. You're not trying to guess the outcome for both teams. I used to bet under on the NBA a lot. It was actually my moneymaker, like around 2011, like the Tom Thibodeau Bulls or the Frank Vogel Pacers. Those teams used to go under a lot. And I used to love betting the under back then, but the NBA has changed. That's my bread and butter right there. And I've had a lot of bad beats in totals in baseball. I kind of stay away with them. I see your approach, and I love the pre-flop and post-flop. I like that metaphor also. Live betting is growing in the United States, and that's actually a great way to position yourself because there's actually a second decision to be made. Even though you're saying that if I see a 3-run homer, I might hit another 25% on the under. When you're actually watching something live, you're giving yourself extra information, and that makes your bet more educated. Plus, you have a different line. You get 10.5, you get 13.5. So I really like that thought process and approach, John.
I appreciate that. Gives me a little bit more confidence too. But let's talk about the NBA, your bread and butter sport. And my Google assistant just spoke. Well, she's not going to speak much longer. There.
All right.
So in the game 6 here, we have a pretty unique situation with one team winning 2 games and then the opponent winning the next 3. And I had Milwaukee in game 6 and had the under in game 5. Lost the over in game 4. But it's been a good playoff run, somewhere in the 60s. I actually don't know off the top of my head. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's more important to worry about today's games or tomorrow's game 6 than it is to worry about your win percentage or your losing percentage. So with these prop bets, I've been riding the Middleton horse, and he's been nothing short of spectacular. And Holiday is actually starting to pick up his game too. And here's my question for you, George, is that the media was always talking that Coach Bud had to make an adjustment. He has to learn to adjust. He doesn't adjust. He doesn't change how he plays, but he did. And he made the right moves. And now we saw in Game 6 where Phoenix did not adjust to what they did. And my question is simple. Do you think Phoenix is going to make the right adjustments to offset what Milwaukee did in Game 4 and 5 to send this game back to Phoenix for Game 7?
That's a great question, and I don't think it's about adjustments anymore. I think it's all about ball pressure and Drew Holiday. Chris Paul is having a really tough time, bringing the ball up, getting to his spots. When Holiday is playing without the fear of getting foul call, because I don't know if you noticed, when the first quarter he did go out with a second foul, from what they said.
Yep.
Chris Paul needs to get Holiday off him. If we see a couple quick fouls on Drew, it's a different game. Just the same thing. Same thing goes for Aiden. With Aiden out of the game, Milwaukee dominates. It's a done deal. So I don't know if it's about adjustment. It's just about getting enough from Chris Paul. What stood out the most for me was how open Milwaukee's shots were and how much Phoenix had to work for theirs. So to the naked eye, I just don't see how they win this series. Will they win a game? Will they cover tomorrow? Quite possible, but I just don't see how they win this series, considering Milwaukee is just setting the tone with their physicality, and it all starts from ball pressure. Because if CP gets going, they're just a different ball club. He's the one that sets the tone for everybody else. He gets 8 in buckets. Booker had to work, even though he dropped 40, he had to work hard for every single shot. And he's a spectacular player. So he made a lot of them. But Middleton, that looked like easy money for him. He was open 50% of the time. So from a matchup point, I just think that if Chris Paul doesn't figure out a way to get Holiday off his back, and that's no easy task, I just don't see how Phoenix is going to come back. Obviously, the 3-point line is basically the deciding factor, because one team goes cold, anybody can beat anybody in the NBA if they're hitting from deep and the other team is missing. So in the unlikely event that Phoenix gets hot and then Milwaukee can buy a 3, they can win. But I just don't see how CP figures out a way to get this defensive menace off his back.
I agree, and I thought it was interesting too. The media kind of missed that point in the beginning. Focusing more on the lack of scoring, lack of offense, and in many ways, it was almost like listening to them talk about Ben Simmons and the inability to make free throws. There's so many other things a player brings to a game and brings to a team, and Holiday's another one of those guys that a team does not have to rely on him to score points. They can rely on him for defense, though, because he's going to bring the house. And you're absolutely spot on with the problems that Chris Paul is having with him. It's not rocket science. You use your 2 eyes and you see what you see. It is pretty obvious. I've even gone through, George, scenarios of how are they going to free Chris Paul up to get space, to get separation from Holiday, either to make a pass or drive into the paint and do one of those floaters or dish it off for a dunk. And I haven't come up with anything. I don't see how a pick and roll is going to do the trick because he's going to get through that screen and he's going to be right on him. If he is picked up by a screen, a Milwaukee guy, obviously not the talent defensively of Holiday, will pick him up, but then Milwaukee quickly switches back. And I think the key to Phoenix is when they get the pick and get Holiday picked off, Chris Paul has to get rid of the ball. right at that point, either a shot or a pass to a 3-pointer shooter, but they had to get rid of the ball so that Holiday's not right back glued to him. And that's the only way I see it. Just pretty basic stuff, I guess.
Playoffs is all about matchups. I'm from a different, school as far as basketball. It was funny because Cam Payne was having his way with the Clippers, even though he's not even close to what Chris Paul is on one leg. He was fast. He used his speed to get around defenders like Paul George. And then when Chris Paul came back, even though he is point guard, the game slowed down. It was easier for the Clippers to kind of contain Phoenix's offense. Right now, I just don't see how you have two. I don't know. Can you play Payne at the same time? They just hunt for the defensive mismatch. Both teams have excellent players. To me right now, it just looks like Milwaukee has 3 guys and Phoenix has 2. So, anything can happen. I don't. Obviously, I agree with what you're saying about the media. I watch a lot of shows saying that Ayton's the 3rd best player in the series, the 4th best player in the series. I'm like, guys, have you not seen Chris Middleton? He shows that he's Michael Jordan, and he's Michael Jordan on Wednesday and Kyle Kuzma on Friday. It happens with him, and kudos to him. He's been excellent. He's been exactly what Milwaukee needs. And I just want to take a second here to mention that the impact that Giannis has had, and I'm not talking about on the court. When I look at this kid speak, and to see what he said about, the past being your ego, and how he remains humble and in the moment, you just don't see that from a 26-year-old every day. And I think that the team rallies around that, even though Middleton's quiet and so is Holiday. They're not very vocal. I think the team has rallied around Giannis, and bearing a miracle, they should be champs because, as you know, that window is really small. The Rockets had their chance. They would have been, in my mind, they would have been champions. They would have beat arguably the best team ever, the Durant Warriors. CP hurt his hamstring, and then Golden State went on to win the championship relatively easily. I know everybody talks about the 0 for 27. Rockets fans, I know a lot of missed calls in that game. I know, even though I had Golden State, and it was in my favor. But as you know, the window's small, so I think Giannis smells blood, and they have to take care of business now. We'll see if Scott Foster refs the game. That should say a lot about where this is going.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. What do you think about Chris Middleton as MVP? Plus 550. Giannis is plus 105.
I'm sorry. I just don't see that. I just can't see that. Maybe if they win it now and he shows out, they'll give it to him. I understand it as a fun bet. I just don't see how. I think it's predetermined that if the Bucks win, it's going to be Giannis, and if the Suns win, it's going to be CP. Even though Book's putting up the big time scoring numbers, I just think it's predetermined. It's really tough. Like I saw it with Iguodala. I understand how they gave it to him. Steve Kerr made the change and he got the Finals MVP. But I just don't. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I need a little bit better odds on that to throw a flyer on it, as you would say, pizza money.
That's it, pizza money.
I like that one, John.
Chris Paul is 16-1 at DraftKings. I assume that's correct. And Devin Booker is plus 160. Giannis is plus 105. So you're spot on with that. And maybe Chris Paul is the guy if you like the Suns to win this thing. Not only tonight, but going 6 and 7, they have to win, obviously. So there is some pretty big value in taking Chris Paul to be the MVP, and that would be a
Giannis is
heck of a bet.
Giannis is minus 105.
Plus 105.
Plus 105.
Yep.
The game's basically minus 200, minus 5. Why would I even consider betting the money line or the Bucks minus 5? I just bet Giannis for MVP.
Giannis tonight. That's exactly right. It's a great point.
There's a lot of different ways you can look at this, and I'm not saying that Mitty can't win it. It's just if you think about what Giannis did with the block and the dunk, if they win it, I just don't see how Giannis doesn't win Finals MVP, John. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love the idea. I saw it right when you were saying it, I was like, holy moly, look at this. Because that's how you play the game tonight.
I might have to log in right now and get some action on that one, John.
I think you're right. And then you can play Milwaukee in-game if you're on that Milwaukee side. But regardless of what side you're on, actually, just making that bet, even if you like Phoenix, making that bet on Giannis is a very good one.
Exactly. You're still alive, even if they lose.
Yep. That's a great point. I can't wait to bring that up this afternoon at 4 o'clock for Manny's Irish Pub Show. And I bet you they'll talk about it on the Wager Talk NBA Tip-Off Show too. Or maybe I should
I'm looking at different odds right now. I don't quite see the minus 105. Maybe that line is prior to Game 5.
I'm looking at DraftKings Live right now.
DraftKings?
Yeah. See what book are you looking at?
I'm looking at Bet365. Pretty reliable one. I'm looking at minus 400.
All right, so I'm looking at. I don't know why that would be because I'm looking at a different site now. Giannis is actually minus 400 for the MVP.
There we go. Because that opened up my appetite, John. All right.
Yeah, so now we're not really on the same planet anymore.
Nope. No, sir.
And Chris Paul 6.5 to 1.
That makes more sense. You're probably looking at an older line, or maybe sometimes they glitch and it doesn't refresh.
Yeah, I think actually they had it as top scorer and it was labeled wrong. Because I'm looking at the top scorer for this game on a different site, and those are the lines. They match DraftKings. So I think it was just a labeling thing. That's kind of weird, though. But at least we have the right odds now.
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah. So I guess we're getting close to the part that we don't like, and that's the end of the show.
It's great. It's great. Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
And be sure, guys, to get over to sportsmemo.com, and you can get there by typing in SM as in sportsmemo.buzz, B-U-Z-Z, /MG as in Mad George, and that'll take you right to his profile page. And, check it out every day. Sometimes he has some big plays up there, but he's a guy that is very careful, very particular in how many plays he releases to you, and that in my opinion is a very good thing. You can release 10 plays a day, but that's just it's almost a recipe to lose money when you play that many games, because it's every additional play is another chance to lose, and it's not a chance to win is what I'm trying to say by doing that many games. And that's why parlays are something you really need to be astute at before you start diving into that realm. A lot of beginners do 5-team parlays, and they put $20 on it. Of course, it loses most of the time, and then before you know it, you're down $1,000 within a month just doing bets that have very low probabilities of hitting. So anyway, got a little off the rails there, Mad George, but I love having you on the show. And hopefully we'll be able to get you on 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Now, folks, there is a delay you're probably hearing. That's because he lives in Greece. Yeah, sometimes I'm so jealous that he's in Greece. Beautiful, beautiful country. So the time difference, he's 5 hours ahead of us. So he's actually starting to think about like dinner plans and that kind of stuff. We're here in the East Coast. We're thinking about lunch. But if it works for him and he's not too tired to come on and have some fun with us, I guarantee you it's going to be a great show. So thanks again for being on the show, George, and we look forward to next Monday for having you on again. And on behalf of George, myself, the Predictive Playbook, Sportsmemo.com, and WagerTalk.com, may all the winds